択だと言ったよな。熱くなるなとも言ったぞ。
今やる。ガルボムの
ルームシャンブルズ
ヘッドホー。
We're back at it again with the purple Luffy going into Uta. This is actually the finals from a local event that I played at here. Starting off first, I think I won the die roll. So definitely want to go first with this deck. End up finding a turn 1 play. That turn 1 play would have hopefully found a Luffy Taro. Unfortunately, did not find a Luffy Taro. What I've learned from playing this deck, kind of need Luffy Taro. Luffy Taro definitely gets you where you need to be. If you don't know who Luffy Taro is, he's one of the new cards from the new starter deck for purple Luffy. You can find that in stores, maybe, if you're lucky. Unfortunately, they put some highly sought after packs in those starter decks, making them a little harder to find. But hey, maybe if you look online at like a Facebook Marketplace or something, you might be able to find a sealed deck without a pack for a cheaper price. I did see a few people selling that. We're gonna play out a Zorojuro. Zorojuro is gonna look at the top 5, find me something pretty. Instead, it could find himself or a Nami, likely. Oh geez, likely here we're gonna look for some 1Ks. Look at my hand, Brick City potentially. Don't want to add more bricks to the wall, so we're gonna grab out an Onami. Do you have a Magellan? That Magellan, unfortunately, is probably not going to see play. And I did manage to pick up a Luffy Taro off the top of life. Luffy Taro, if you don't know, 7 cost 8k power on play. Dawn -1, then play up to 1 5 cost or less purple Straw Hat card or character from your hand into play. Allows you to build a board. You know, I'm playing against Uta. Uta is the vomit deck, right? If you know what that means, I mean, it's Uta constantly puts things into play off of their character cards. So things like Brook, 7 cost Luffy, all that jazz. We're gonna swing 5k, then a 6k. Opponent's just gonna go ahead and take one, counter the other. And then I'm going to ramp myself up to 7. We're going to play out that nice little Luffy Taro here. We're going to show Uta that I also can play more than 1 card in 1 turn. And we're going to go Luffy Taro into Sangoro. Pretty nice play pattern here. Though Uta could very much do the same thing back, as Uta is very good at getting stuff on the board. I was a little nervous going into this matchup. Uta is very well known for playing a lot of blockers. This deck doesn't have a great record of playing against a bunch of blockers because this is kind of an aggro deck that does use its life as a resource. Opponent here is just going to swing attach 2 to lead, go ahead and send a 7k. I do have that 0 cost event here that I could use to stop myself from going to 2. I think we're going to go ahead and pull the trigger on that, as my opponent doesn't have any other swings this turn unless he decides to attach 4 Dawn to his blocker, which is unlikely to happen here. We're going to get that Magellan out of hand. Because my opponent is on the even curve, I could, this next turn could have been the turn to play Magellan, but since my opponent's on the even turn, my opponent would still go to 7 Dawn, which allowed them to play the 7 cost Luffy. If my opponent was on the odd curve and for some reason I was using this play Magellan this next turn, I definitely would have played it to take my opponent down to 6 Dawn to take them off the 7 drop. But in this specific situation, we don't really need it. We are at 8 Dawn here. Gonna go ahead and spend 6k with the Sangoro. Sangoro is going to draw me a card here. Opponent's going to look at their hand, show me a 2k. They've also got an Uta blocker on the field. That's the new Uta blocker from the starter deck. Pretty nifty little card. 4 cost 6k blocker. I'm trying to remember what else it does. I don't know. It's kind of a forgettable card. I think you discard a music card from your hand and you can attach Dawn to something. Rested Dawn. Anyways, never mind that. I'm playing Luffy Taro. Luffy Taro number 2 is gonna slap down another Sangoro. It is Groundhog's Day for my opponent as I play out the same 2 cards 2 turns in a row. Things are potentially slipping away from my opponent, as those Sangoros are going to keep drawing me tons of cards if my opponent can't deal with them, and my opponent's just going to try their hardest. Going to go ahead and swing a 6k into the Sangoro. I'm just going to show him a 1k here. If my opponent wanted to attach some Dawn, does look like they have 7 Dawn left. They could also swing with the Uta. Speaking of vomiting onto the board, we've got a Luffy into a Brook into a new Charlotte category. That's also a new card for the starter deck. 3 cost 4k. If you have 6 or more rested Dawn, it gets plus 2k. And that's on both turns, so that category is a 6k. Slap the camera. Speaking of cameras, you like the new setup? If you're an average watcher of the channel, you realize that the setup's a little different. A little more zoomed in, a little more focused. I've actually got the camera in my lap, like a little baby. But sometimes I might slap it around on accident. But anyways, yeah, so we're going to go ahead and just swing with those Sangoros. This 6k attack is definitely a bait. It's a bait to get Luffy to attack, and Luffy definitely fell into the bait here, and I'm going to clean up that Luffy later with my Luffy Taro likely, because we don't want a 7k blocker to be sticking around here. But definitely want to use those Sangoros to go ahead and get some swings in case I start minusing some Dawn. We end up finding another Luffy Taro. That is our third Luffy Taro this game. That Luffy Taro could play out a Nami blocker if potentially my opponent does manage to clear some of my board here. Opponent just does decide to take the 7k hit, going down to 3 life. I've got a few bit more Dawn to work with here, and we're gonna go ahead and think about attaching 2 Dawn to the Luffy Taro to go ahead and swing 8k. I am going to try to clear this Luffy Taro to the best of my ability. We're going to go and swing, I think, just a nice solid little 6 into my leader here, into my opponent here. Yep, we're going to go and send a 6. I'm just going to get a 2k out of my opponent's hand. Likely what we're going to do is play out the Onami, because I think we did see an I'm Invincible come off the top from the leader. We're going to send a 6k at leader here. Just try to keep pressuring my opponent's hand or their life. Either or, don't really care which order. But I do have to be cognizant of some potential I'm Invincibles being away from my opponent to swing multiple times the Uta, as my hand, it's okay. My hand's alright. Nami's could definitely make my hand look better. I do have 7 Dawn remaining, likely going to use 3 of it to do something funny. If you've been watching the Purple Luffy series, this isn't the first time Luffy Taro has gotten some Dawn attached to him and swung at a threat. We're going to send 10k, he's going to let it go. We're going to send 8k, opponent's just going to let it go. Opponent doesn't want to go down to 1 life. And then we're going to play out the Onami here. Onami is going to let me trash 1 card from my hand and draw 2 cards here. I think we're either going to pitch that Luffy Taro or the Big Mom. Big Mom could be a potential play later in the game, but we decide, never mind. Big Mom gone. And you know what? Every time I play Onami and discard a brick, I draw another one. So end up finding a Kaido here. Kaido, great way to finish games. It does KO a 6 or less, so I can't KO a 7-drop. Instead, he's going to play out the Shanks here, new card from the Film Uta deck. Shanks being a 11k, 9 cost 11k, KO a on-play, KO a rested character, so it is able to take out the Luffy Taro. Opponent's going to swing 6k into the Sangoro. I'm just going to counter with 1k. Opponent's then just going to swing 6k into the Sangoro again. We're just going to counter with another Sangoro, telling my opponent I'm going to continue drawing cards for the rest of the game. You can't stop me. I'm going to draw 3 cards a turn. I don't care. Opponent's going to swing 5k at lead here. I could give him up my Nami, but that Nami might be something I play on this next turn. So we're going to debate, do we use the Nami? Do we take the life? Or do we just sit pretty? We're just going to take the life there. That does pull up a queen, so another emergency blocker if I need it to be. But my opponent is in this interesting situation where they've only got 4 cards in hand, 2 life. They didn't really do much last turn other than establish a Shanks. That Shanks is likely just going to be playing garbage cleanup for my characters and likely not going to go at face. But I do have a nice little Kaido here if I wanted to push pretty aggressively for game. Instead, I could just also attach all that Dawn to my 4 characters. That's 4 swings into my opponent's 2 life and 4 cards. This first swing is likely going to get some counter, but the rest of the swings could finish off the game. I could also just use enough Dawn to be able to play out another Nami, so I could have double protection in the form of blockers. We're going to go ahead and send 7k. We're going to draw 1 card, end up picking another brick. I'm starting to build a house in my hand, and then we're going to likely attach some more Dawn. And while I'm saying this and potentially finishing the game, I'm going to call out there is 88% of you that have watched these videos and have gotten this far in the video potentially that aren't subscribed to the channel. Definitely subscribe to the channel. If you like this type of content and you want to be a part of the all blue crew, join the crew. We need deck hands. Anyways, I swung 7k, opponent takes it. And that gives me a little thinky here. All right, opponent just snap took that. You know, I could get a little ballsy here. You know, we've got 8 Dawn to work with. Could play out. Could use 1 Dawn. Could use 3 Dawn. Could play out a queen. Yada yada. We're just gonna go 8k at lead here. Opponent is just gonna take it. Opponent makes a hand gesture which tells me their hand may be absolute crap, and I'm in a position where I probably will not die on this next turn. So we're just going to go 13k lead here, and opponent just shows me a whole hand of bricks. Welcome to the Uta train. That is 3 Shanks in hand, And that concludes the game. If you like this type of content, definitely subscribe, definitely leave a like, and comment if you like Purple Luffy, and tell me what you run in your deck. I don't know, I run Magellan sometimes. Anyways, have a good one.